and welcome to the Cursed Kingdom's very first monthly short story special. Today, we'll be entering into the depths of hell. But before we start, because it is October next month, and with October comes the beautiful, amazing Halloween, I have a question for you guys to answer in the comment section below. What scares you the most? Is it clowns? Is it paranormal and supernatural happenings and the idea of ghosts watching you while you shower? Or do your fears surround the dark depths of the human psyche and true crime? Or are you just afraid of clowns because, clowns are scary? Please do let me know in the comment section below. So let us begin with our first short story, Good Intentions by DJ Doyle. Boo. Stop joking around, Jennifer said to her jesting boyfriend, Aaron. She dropped the screwdriver from her hand. You're going to give me a heart attack one of these days. You'll be sorry then. Oh, you know I'm only kidding. I can't help it. It's just too easy, he laughed. Yes, but I'm up this stepladder trying to fix this curtain pole. If you were any good at DIY, it would be you doing this, being the man. No need to insult my manhood. I'll be doing more than that to your manhood if you keep it up, she giggled. Jennifer stepped down while holding onto Aaron's shoulders. Who could have reached up and tightened the loose screw without any effort? Aaron couldn't even change a light bulb. He grew up pampered and pandered to. Their servants did everything. That was before the market crash 4 years prior, when the family lost everything. Aaron's father was found in his favourite car with a gun in his hand. A good education allowed him to get a well-paid job. Jennifer was a grafter. She had her first job in a laundrette at the tender age of 12. Then worked in a supermarket weekends while she attended college. They met in a local coffee shop. Aaron accidentally picked up her coffee, but it was all just a ploy to talk to the woman, who he found attractive. They had been dating for 5 years, and they'd had their ups and downs, yet they always pulled through. You need to stop doing DIY and housework. It's time to get ready. We have to check into the hotel, and we have a table booked for 8 o'clock. That's in 4 hours. Susan and Rick will be here in 30 minutes, so get a move on. Where are we going again? She asked, as she opened her wardrobe door. Jennifer browsed through her dresses and inspected her line of shoes down below, trying to pick the best match. The Fort Lodge Hotel is in the middle of nowhere, replied Aaron. Never heard of the place. Right, I'm going for a shower, and we'll put my face on. Rick pulled up and parked their car outside. He smiled at Susan. Her vibrant red hair flowed like silk and suited her emerald green dress. His confidence and sense of humour had won her over. A large Jewish nose had been the butt of many jokes growing up, so he worked on his charm to talk to the ladies. They walked up the drive to the porch, and Susan rang the doorbell. Do you think she has an inkling? Whispered Rick. No, not a clue. I talked to her yesterday. She has no idea. The door opened, and Aaron stood there with a big grin. Hey guys, come in. Jennifer is nearly ready. She's dressed, makeup on, just doing her hair now. I have a bottle open. I hope Red is okay. Sure, Aaron, I'm thirsty as hell, said Rick. Aaron poured out 4 glasses. Jennifer came down the stairs in the blue dress Aaron adored. She tossed her long brown hair over her shoulder with a black leather bag, the last thing that remained of her grandmother. "Wow, you look amazing, Jennifer," said Susan. "You do too. Look at you in that dress. And Rick, very handsome in a shirt and tie. Hey, what about me? Do I look good?" "Of course you do, honey." And she kissed him on the cheek. Chatted for a few minutes, discussing their hopes of what might be on the menu that evening and the luxury they would experience on their romantic weekend. The cab turned up outside and they heard the impatient driver bang on the horn. All four finished the remainder of their wine in one go. "Good. We're all gonna have a good time." "Are we all strapped in?" asked the driver. He heard multiple clicks from the back. "First Lodge Hotel it is. I'll be doing the back roads as it's quicker from here," he said, and slid the safety hatch shut. Excitement filled the air. Jennifer hadn't been away in quite a while. She and Aaron had struggled with their first year mortgage payments, so they needed a short break. They were finally on their feet. The girls talked about the latest dish Susan had tried from her favourite cooking show, while the boys laughed at the Trump and Clinton memes going around their office. Jennifer glared out the window. They had turned off the main road and were on a long, windy country road, only lit by the full moon. Tall trees stood on both sides of the road. Some were so overgrown, the long branches curved over and the leaves brushed against the top of the car. Jennifer found the sound quite soothing. Then she spotted some movement in the bushes and was convinced she saw a head pop up. "That's odd," she thought. "Where is this road? I've never been down here before. It's so creepy," said Susan. "There used to be an old asylum near here. It closed down over 20 years ago, I think," Rick told them. The headlights on the car were not strong enough to see further than 100 yards. "There's something in the road up ahead," said the driver. They were unable to hear him, so Rick instructed him to open the hatch. "I said, there's something in the road up ahead. I can't see what it is. It's blocking the whole road." As the car got closer, they could see a large fallen branch. A mist began to flow through the trees like a river and gathered all around them. "I'll get out and have a look, see if it's not too heavy to lift, and move out of the way." The driver's door eerily creaked as he opened it. Rustling noises came from beyond the trees. However, he couldn't see anything. He ducked back into the car to grab a flashlight and walked over to the obstruction in the road. The driver shoved the branch with his leg to test it. It shifted about a foot. "Maybe we could move it after all," he thought, and beckoned Aaron to help him. Aaron slid out of the back seat, leaving the door ajar, and followed the light that shined directly in his eyes. He couldn't see a thing, so he raised his hand to block the rays. "What's that noise?" Jennifer asked. "It sounds like moaning." As the driver waited for Aaron, the others in the car saw them coming. All they could see were silhouettes of people creeping forward with their arms stretched out. "Who are they? What are they doing?" asked Jennifer. They lurked towards the inattentive driver and reached out. Jennifer and Susan yelled at him to turn around. "Watch out! They're behind you!" Rick struggled to get out of the car as his shaky hands tugged at the door handle. He shouted to warn them. 5 zombies mauled the driver and dragged him to the ground, with more lunging on top. They heard a shriek of pain, blood spraying out of the heap. Bits of flesh and intestines propelled into the air. The women screamed. Aaron stood frozen, facing the space where the driver had stood. Jennifer hollered for him to come back. Tears welled up in her eyes and trickled down her cheeks. "What the hell is going on?" Susan said. "I think they're zombies," replied Jennifer. "Don't be silly, zombies aren't real," said Rick. "Come on, Aaron." "What the hell do you want to call them then?" Jennifer bellowed. "They're probably escaped lunatics from the asylum I told you about. That closed down years ago. That's what you said, remember? Well, maybe I was wrong." More zombies came from the bushes. They headed straight for Aaron, grunting and moaning. Aaron turned to run, though it was too late. They hauled him down to the ground and lugged him over to the side of the road as they fought to get their pound of flesh. His body disappeared under the mass of zombies. Jennifer bawled, unable to breathe. She gasped for air. "Rick, get back in the car and shut the doors. Don't make any noises," instructed Susan. "I've seen enough zombie movies to know they're attracted to sound and light. We need to get out of here fast." Susan's heart pumped with adrenaline, and she knew Jennifer was in no state to think straight. She needed to keep control of her emotions and take command. Rick climbed into the front to make their getaway. Instead, an alarm invaded the night stillness. Sweat seeped down his forehead into his eyebrows. "Fuck, what have I done?" he thought. The noise rang through their ears, and the zombies perked their heads up to listen. More came from the trees on either side, all heading for the car. "Turn it off!" Susan shouted. "Bloody thing, turn it off now!" Rick fiddled with the dials and buttons. All the lights came on inside the car, and they could barely see outside anymore. He finally switched the alarm off, then he turned off the lights. Susan gasped. Jennifer screeched. The car was now surrounded by zombies. They saw faces covered in blood, old and new, with rotting flesh exposed. Their clothes were tattered, and their black and brown blood-covered teeth made Jennifer gag. Susan jumped up in her seat as they clawed at the windows. Jennifer became enraged. "Bastards! How are we going to get out of this?" whimpered Rick. They did not respond. The two women didn't know what to say. The car rocked back and forth as the zombies desperately tried to get at the people inside. Rick roared at them to get away, but that fell on dead ears. The windscreen started to shatter as the zombie pounded on it. It was the driver. "They will eventually get in. What are we going to do? I don't want to die like this," said Susan. "I'm getting us the hell out of here," Rick said, and tried starting the car. The door opened beside him, and he was yanked out. "Help me! Help!" he begged. Then it went quiet. Susan slammed the door shut. The trunk door clicked and started to open. Zombies poured into the back of the car and reached for Jennifer and Susan. "They aren't getting me," Jennifer stated. She searched for something to defend herself with. Nothing. She checked through her bag in case she had some pepper spray or something. She didn't. Not that the spray would affect them. Rummaging some more, Jennifer found a screwdriver and remembered she'd had her bag on the floor when Aaron frightened her earlier on. It must have dropped right in. Jennifer aimed for the 3 zombies with their arms reaching through the headrests on the back seats. In the corner of her eye, she saw Aaron approaching the car, covered in blood. He did not look like the Aaron she knew, not the Aaron she fell in love with. He's a zombie now. She noticed Aaron holding something in his hand. Jennifer lashed out and stabbed each of the 3 closest zombies in the crown of the head. She heard a crunch from the bone cracking with force. Blood squirted like a pulse all over Jennifer. She didn't expect that from the dead. Some got into her mouth. It was sweet-flavoured. Horrified silence spread across the crowd of zombies. One lifted her hand to her face and screamed at the top of her voice. They backed away in terror. Jennifer glared at the blood on her hands and body. She stared at Aaron coming her way. He held a small opened box in his hands. A diamond ring sparkled under the moonlight. As they grabbed the driver, they ripped his shirt and trousers and squirted fake blood. They covered his face with grey and brown putty to make it look messy and threw fake flesh into the air above them. Aaron lay on the ground while they made a mess of his face and clothes with more putty and fake blood. Rick was gagged and dragged away before being let in on the plan. He giggled when he spied on Susan and Jennifer from behind a bush, so frightened on their own. Aaron took the ring from his pocket and took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change their lives forever. He trembled at the sight of the slaughter. Jennifer, it was all a joke. I was going to ask you to marry me. And that is why you do not pull a prank on an independent woman. Or at least a zombie prank, I guess. That twist at the end certainly did get me. I hope it did the same for you as well. Now, just a quick reminder, if you enjoyed that, please do not forget to like and subscribe and press that little bell because it helps a lot. It will help this channel grow and hopefully help the quality improve. Now let's take a quick break before we go on to our next short story in this Short Story Monthly Special and enjoy a bit of music. So get your Kit Kats ready and let's take a break.
I'm done with your self-righteous indignation, taking up more space than what is meant for your possession. I try to lead and shed some light into your fragile condition, yet you bite the hand that feeds you and ruins
before we continue this lovely short story video, let me remind you of the question that really needs answering, ready for Halloween next month. What scares you the most? Don't forget to comment your greatest fears in the comment section below. Ruby, the Red-Nosed Viking by Stephen Landry. Chapter 1. Before the land there was nothing. No earth, no heavens, no hell, no stars and no sky. There was a mist, shapeless, and fire always burning. Soon came thought, and the world became more. Now the mist is all but a faded memory. In a time long, long ago, or maybe perhaps the present in some unfamiliar realm, or a future we may one day find, the land is born and filled with immortals and magic. A world born with giants and trolls, snakes and dragons, mountains that walk and talk, fairies and spirits. Even elves have come to call parts of the land home. Tall, dusty ruins and towers, shrines of power and treasure, dark dungeons and mystery. The land is home to many wild things, but none more wild, none more into things than a young woman, a Viking named Ruby the Red. Ruby had a red nose and red hair. When she was a small child, she began her days of adventuring. At first, she was just a curious, exploring this and that. Now not so small and practically a grown-up, she found herself running an errand for her mother that led her into the woods to pick herbs. Peppermint, basil, barley and rose petal tea, she sang to remember. Her red hood and cape covered her leather armour and short steel sword. She carried a small round wooden shield on her back, and a satchel made of fine cloth hung by her side. It was always better to be safe than sorry. It was here in the woods, about midday, she met a raven named Hewin, which means thought. Ruby recognised the raven from stories her father had told her about the old Norse gods. The raven belonged to none other than Odin himself. Odin, king of the Norse gods. He was all-powerful and noble. Having given his eye for wisdom, he was also brilliant. Ruby saw that Hugin was crying and asked why. Hugin responded chirping and told Ruby how he and his brother had been sent on a quest in search of the mighty Thor's missing hammer. The two became separated inside a dark cave, and Hugin's brother, Munin, which meant memory, had been captured by Loki, Odin's blood brother, and Hugin knew Loki had something awful planned. Odin, Loki, Thor usually lived in Asgard, while the people of the land, like us, resided in what is called Midgard. For Thor to have lost his hammer, Mjolnir, forged by dwarves to make even greater giants tremble. Something terrible must be happening. Loki was a sly god, a trickster. Perhaps Ruby thought, this is one of his many games. She had once heard a story of how Loki turned Thor into a frog. As the raven cried, Ruby couldn't resist the call to adventure and agreed to help the raven search for his missing brother. Memory will be found, she said, smiling, asking in which direction was the cave. The raven sighed. I do not know. I thought it was left, but I could also think right. Without my brother by my side, I do not remember, he cried. Do not cry, my friend. I have an idea, said Ruby. She untied the ribbon from her hair and said, whichever way this ribbon blows, we shall travel. And she let go. A cold breeze blew around them, and Ruby's nose turned even more red. Ruby smiled. Let's go left. And the pair took off towards the mountains. The mountains, which unfortunately for them, were home to the frost giants. Of course, that was the least of their concerns, for they would soon be drawing near to the troll known as Grimoire's Bridge. Chapter 2. Ruby was not a real Viking in the sense that most believed. Not really. She never set sail, or plundered, or went to war. She was just a human, a girl living in the land. She lived with her mother and father, farmed and fished, gathered herbs and went to school. She dreamt of one day travelling the world, and one day working with animals. Some time ago, the world came and went, and the land became what it is. The stories of the old worlds fascinated Ruby. The giant ruins and tales of heroes. Helping the raven now felt natural. It was the right thing, a good thing. Unfortunately for her, it would soon be a terrible good thing. Ruby and Raven approached a long stone bridge. As they began to cross, a troll appeared and demanded, Hey you! You look like you would make a good soup. Better you pay my toll or I will eat you and your feathered friend for dinner. The Raven shouted, I think we should run. But Ruby stood her ground. No, you wouldn't want to eat me. Absolutely not. That would be so terrible. You must be crazy. You see, if you ate me, we wouldn't be able to rescue Memory and you wouldn't remember what I tasted like. So, what do I care? Snarled the troll. Ruby thought about drawing her sword and shield, but the troll was a massive creature and made of stone, and carried a massive club across his back, something which gave Ruby an idea. What is your name? She asked. Grimoire the Old. I've been alive 17 centuries and kept this bridge safe, the troll gloated. This is a beautiful bridge. Did you draw these? Ruby said, pointing towards the ruins and art that decorated the bridge around her. I did, said Grimoire proudly. Beautiful, she smiled. All of this great work must have taken a lot of energy. Perhaps I can offer you some tea, Ruby said, plucking a bag of herbs from her satchel. It does take a lot of work, said Grimoire. I don't have a way to mash the leaves, not water or fire to boil them, Ruby sighed. Let me help with that, said Grimoire, as he took his giant club and the tea leaves from Ruby and mashed them. When they were just the right size, he jumped from the bridge and gathered water and wood for a fire, placing his club far from him and rubbing his stone hands together as the flint for the fire, while Ruby made a bag for the tea. After a few minutes, Ruby, the raven, and the troll watched as the bag of tea boiled in the kettle Grimoire had made. When it was done boiling, Ruby insisted Grimoire drank as much as he liked. The troll picked up the burning hot kettle and drank every last drop, leaving none for Ruby and the raven. As the troll drank, Ruby began to sing. The song was a lullaby, and not moments after the last drop of tea was gone, the troll sank to the ground and fell asleep. "That was brilliant," said the raven. "Poppy leaves. That is the tea you drink when you are ready for bed," Ruby smiled. The two continued their journey and soon found themselves in a large forest with trees 3 times the size of the rest of the land. It was here Ruby met a wolf named Fen with a thorn in his paw. "You're hurt," she cried. The wolf snarled at her. "I wish I had some more of that tea," she said calmly. "We should run," said the raven. "We can't run away from the problems of others, especially when someone is hurt," said Ruby. Slowly, she walked towards the giant wolf, holding out her hand. In a calm voice, she told the wolf she was her friend, and told him how beautiful he was, and offered to help him. The wolf, still snarling, moved its paw towards her. A moment later, she removed the thorn, and the wolf stood high on its large legs. Its jaw hung open, showing its sharp teeth as its ears stood up, listening to the sounds all around them. Ruby, again, stood her ground, looking upwards towards the beast, still smiling, holding out her hand. The wolf gave her a kiss, licking her cheek. Ruby smiled. Not all who look dangerous are. If the wolf was not friendly, he never would have let me near his hand at all. Sometimes we have to take a leap of faith and believe in the hearts of others, she said to the raven. "I think you are right," said the raven, as the wolf bent his head, offering to give Ruby a ride. Chapter 3. The wolf took Ruby and the raven all the way through the giant's forest, where they saw what remained of Ymir, and a battle that raged long ago before the land was created. Before time passed and there was only fire and darkness. Through the grey and the cold, the wolf Fen ran along a river line up through the mountains, fighting through hordes of goblins and a giant boar, until finally tired from battle, the 3 of them reached a small dwarven village. The village was filled with dozens of merchants and different guilds. The village wasn't just dwarves. There were many elves, humans, a beast with 2 backs, even a few big green ogres that walked the streets buying food and clothing. Blankets and sheep, reading charms for bracelets and swords, weapons forged by the dwarves, weapons that could manipulate time, even change fate. "Health potions, mana potions," yelled one of the merchants. "What is mana?" asked Ruby. "My girl, haven't you heard? Mana is the source of magic. Here, try a sample," said the storekeeper. Ruby took a small drink of mana and found herself floating in the air. "It is you," said the keep. "This is incredible," smiled Ruby. The keep gave her an entire bottle on the house and encouraged her to stay and study magic, but alas, Ruby sighed. "My friend, the raven, we are on a quest to rescue his brother. I still have much to do, but I will return," she said. As she promised she would come back soon, The keep handed her a card. It had a strange rune on it, and he told her she would understand how to use it in an emergency. Kindness is rewarded with kindness, he said. Ben walked towards the keep and laid down. Thank you for bringing Fen back home. He had gone on an errand for me, and I was beginning to get worried, he smiled. Tomorrow is the Autumn Harvest Festival. You should get some rest. I know a great inn that will have you if you help put some of the banners. Tomorrow is the Autumn Harvest Festival. You should get some rest. I know a great inn that will have you if you help put up some banners, said the keep. So Ruby and the Raven set banners up, standing at the top of long ladders, and watched as a one-armed man dragged a large cauldron to the centre of town, filling it with spices and mead. He smiled at the young girl and handed her a rose petal, and went about his way, thanking her for helping the village. Ruby and the Raven spent the rest of the day exploring the rest of the village together, and soon the sun began to set. My parents are going to be worried, said Ruby. We have already travelled so far. It's too late to turn around now, she sighed. I will go to them and tell them of your quest, said the Raven. Bring them this, said Ruby, handing the Raven a small charm and note. She smiled and thanked her thoughtful companion before retiring for the night at an inn that was run by an ogre. The inn looked like a small that unfolded from a cloth and got bigger and bigger. And as more people continued to arrive, it got even bigger until it filled an entire field. The Raven flew. It flew back down the river, past the snowy mountains and giant forests, and over the top of the sleeping Troll's Bridge. It flew all the way to Ruby's parents and delivered the message. But something was wrong. Ruby's parents had forgotten her. In fact, the entire world had forgotten most things, losing their memories, slowly fading outwards towards the dwarven village. The Raven knew Loki was up to something awful. Chapter 4. The Raven flew. It flew faster than it had ever flown before, faster than a hawk, faster than the eagles, faster than even the dragons whose fire-breathing lit up the night sky. Ruby woke to the Raven scratching on her window and let it inside. She listened, but couldn't remember her quest. Think, there must be something, said the Raven. I know that you are my friend, but I don't know anything else, cried Ruby. You remember me? Raven asked. I never forget my friends. Ruby smiled. The card! Draw the rune on your wrist and cast a spell of protection, said the Raven. And so, as everyone forgot everything and the world's memories began floating in a wave through the air, Ruby drew the rune and cast her card. A magnificent sword appeared from the air into Ruby's hands. It was not made of steel, but of her own memories, and inscribed with the words, "The mind is a terrible thing to waste." As Ruby held the sword upright, she remembered everything: her parents, the troll, the bridge, Ben, the keep, the ogre at the inn, and of course, her quest to save the Raven. And with that, the two began their journey again, heading out as the sun rose into the sky above, following the trail of lost memories. Together, The two continued their adventure, and without memories fighting and riding out to the sea against basilisks and beasts. They were even stopped by an ice dragon when they reached the home world of the ice giants. Ruby, with her mighty sword, was unstoppable. Finally, after several more delays, the two friends stood at the entrance to the cave at the end of the world, where all the world's memories stopped, and Loki waited. Chapter 5. Loki, the sly trickster god, the uninspiring immortal, the frost giant's forgotten child, and god of misdeeds and mischief, sat on a throne made of gems. Each gem a mind stone, holding each and every single memory in the world, except for the memories of Ruby and the Raven. Beside Loki was Hugin's brother, Muninn, trapped in a cage in a weird magic trance, sitting atop Thor's mighty hammer. "And who are you?" asked Loki. "I am Ruby, the Red. Now let Muninn go," she demanded. Loki laughed, chuckled, and as he smiled, his face twisted into a vile grin. "Come now. You don't believe you can really stop me, do you? Not even the mighty Thor without his hammer can find me. I've won. Soon, no one will remember me as being the joke of the old gods. I will not be remembered as a fool anymore," said Loki. "I will remember you," shouted Ruby, drawing her sword. Loki looked at her with anger. "Just you. It doesn't matter. Your memory of me means nothing," he said. Words. Ruby lowered her sword and faced away from him, back towards the entrance. "You're right. But I will tell everyone what you have done. I will tell the stories of Loki the Forgotten again and again until everyone has heard. The feeble, immortal, so ashamed of himself he had to erase the world's memories." Ruby smiled, laughed even. Loki stood in silence for a moment. "Wait," he said. Ruby continued to walk away, angering the old god. "I can make you rich, give you power. I can make you immortal. I would rather you turn me into a frog. As long as I have my memories, I have all I need. So be it!" And Loki cast a spell. Wisps of light flew through the air against Ruby and the Raven. The Raven turned into a frog immediately, but Ruby stood, the magic spell burning in the air around her. She smiled again, this time drawing out her sword above her head. Ruby jumped through the air and swung towards the terrified Loki, only to strike the birdcage and set Muninn free. And so the memories of the world returned, and Loki's curse became undone, as Hugin turned back into a bird, only this time it was a giant raven. Loki sat on the throne, a confused look across his face. "Who are you?" he asked. Ruby looked at him. He looked more fragile now, older, and his hair more grey. Loki's curse had come back on him, and he had forgotten he was the trickster. "My name is Ruby. I came in search of Thor's hammer. I have found it, and now I need to go," she said, her sword sheathed around her back, turning away, holding Thor's hammer in hand. "Wait, please don't go," cried Loki. Ruby turned towards him. Will you stay a little while longer? Will you be my friend? I can stay for tea. And as Ruby sat with Loki for a while, and together they drank tea, and Ruby shared with him some of her favourite memories, they laughed and smiled, and Loki waved goodbye. In the end, Ruby rode away on Hugin's back, carrying Thor's hammer back to Asgard, with just enough time to make it home to hear her father, the bard, sing and tell a new story. A story passed to him by a tall man in a black cloak and one eye. The story of the bard's daughter, the story of Ruby the Red. Now that was a lovely story, and I'm sure many children would enjoy reading that or listening to it. So I will be posting it as a separate video just for any kids out there that want to listen to Ruby the Red. Now, just for a quick reminder, just in case you've forgotten, don't forget to like this video and give us a quick subscribe and press that bell button so that you can receive notifications of all short stories coming your way and our Cursed Kingdom podcast every Friday. Now it's time for a little break and let's listen to another song. This time it'll be by Caitlin Strandridge. I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing that right still, but we'll find out eventually. So I hope you enjoy.
Weep for yourself, my man, you'll never be what is in your heart. Weep, little lion man, you're not as brave as you were at the start. Rake yourself and rake yourself, take all the courage you have left. Waste it on fixing all the problems that you made in your own head. But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? Didn't I, my dear? Tremble for yourself, my man, you know that you have seen this all before. Tremble, little lion man, you never settle any of your scores. Your grace is wasted in your face, your boldness stands alone among the wreck. Learn from your mother or you'll spend your days biting your own neck. But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? Didn't I, my dear? But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? Didn't I, my dear?
And again, we're back for another short story in this lovely special just for you guys out there. And just to be annoying, I'm going to give you a quick reminder that if you enjoy the content that you are consuming right now, right at this very moment, press that subscribe button and that bell. And don't forget to like this video. And with the importance of the great Samhain, Halloween, next month, please do comment what scares you the most in the comment section down below. And now, let us enjoy our next short story for today. Deadman's Landing by Persephone Clearwater. They promised us a new home, a new earth, a place to start again and rectify the mistakes we made before. But it was all a lie. I realise that now. They had called it Paradisium, the place of paradise. Despite the agonising pain in my chest, the overpowering clicking sound of my broken ribs moving, I reach for the old photograph and gaze upon the beautiful young girl who I'll never see again. As I struggle to breathe against the blood filling my lungs, I manage to murmur a single sentence that I feel must be said, though no one shall ever hear it. I'm sorry, Ariella. I failed you. The words are more of a gurgle than a voice speaking them. The truth. What is the truth? Who will ever know it? Who will want to know? We're here! We're finally here! Saya announced as she ran through the halls, jumping with excitement, her youthful tan skin reflecting the synthetic light of the ship we called home for too many years. Elizabeth! She blurted as she came to a sudden halt and grabbed me by the wrist. Come on, you've got to see it! I'm coming, I murmured as the corners of my lips twitched into a smile. And without hesitation, I followed behind the youngest crew member and probably one of the smartest people I'd ever met. The white halls flashed past us until we reached the large dining hall, and quickly, she pressed the button causing the metal to lift from the glass, revealing the vast, unexplored universe that surrounded us. Suns twinkled brightly in the distance, their light barely reaching us, and I couldn't help but wonder how many other Earths were out there. If this is the new Earth, a new start, then maybe we'll have a chance to explore further and find more new Earths, more new starts. I thought as I pulled out the photograph of Ariella that I held close to my heart. It's a new start for her, a new start for your daughter and for your future grandchildren, said Saya, as the other crew members joined us. With a huge grin upon her face, she carefully removed the photograph from my hand, forcing me to look upon the beautiful planet that stood before us, awaiting us. A new future, I murmured. We shall commence landing tomorrow, said the captain, as he took a stand upon one of the large tables so that he could dress each of us. Before we proceed with landing, may the scientists of the crew begin their work. A groan echoed through the room as each of the scientists assigned to the mission began to move. But not now. Let us all celebrate this new future. The crew cheered with exhilaration and several vanished before returning with as much alcohol as they could carry. My heart skipped a beat as I was handed the first of many glasses of champagne. And a single tear of joy fell down my cheek as I gazed upon the new planet. It's a new start, eh? Said Haru. And a new future, chimed Saya. To new starts and a new future, I said, as my smile grew and the first toast was made. A chance for our children and our grandchildren to have a home, shouted another crew member. Day 2. Eagerly, I awaited in the small ship, dressed in the tight suit prepared for landing, my heart hammering violently in my chest, with excitement as I sat there, fidgeting in my seat as the countdown began. This wasn't the first landing I'd been on, but it was the first that had been so promising. The thought of the atmosphere being exact to Earth was something I could barely comprehend, and we were finally here. Years of staring at the endless darkness that surrounded us, suns shining in the distance, and countless galaxies and planets, offering hope as they awaited us, but none of them were paradisium. It was almost like the promised land given to the Jews in the Bible, a land promised to be more than perfection. Launching shall commence in 10, 9, 8. With each number that passed, my heart beat faster and faster until I was certain that I was borderline having a heart attack. 4, 3, 2, 1. The ship began to shake as it separated from the main vessel, the powerful engines echoing around us, almost deafening us as the slim helmets began to unfold around our faces to ensure that we had a long-lasting amount of oxygen, just in case. Saya's face appeared on the holographic image, only inches from mine, as she smiled her youthful, innocent smile. Are you ready, Lizzie? I'm ready. Are you excited? Are you? Hey, I asked you. You can't answer my question with a question. It's not allowed, she joked. Tough. I just did. Well, I've got you back when you're on the ground. Now, the atmosphere seems to be a lot like Earth, but that doesn't mean we can't follow protocol. Keep the suit on, ensure all safety precautions are taken, be careful of any forms of life, I said as I rolled my eyes and my lips twitched into a slight smile. Don't worry, I got it. Good, because we still don't know what to expect. On the radar so far, we can see some indications of life, but we're not sure what it's capable of or whether there is any form of intellectual life already inhabiting the planet. Well, we can hope that if there is intellectual life, it's friendly and welcoming. Yeah, but humans haven't exactly got a history of being friendly and welcoming, so working from our own history, we can only surmise what life on this planet could be like, said Saya. Her voice seemingly nervous for a moment, before she appeared to push aside her worries and concerns and allow her excitement to return. Don't worry, we've got this. It isn't our first landing, don't forget. I know, but there's a lot to consider and a lot of potential dangers to think over. I know, but we'll be fine. We know what we're doing. You better be alright. I promised Ariella that I'd bring you home safe and sound, she replied with a smile, and I couldn't help but remember how they'd been in the same year at school, before Saya had stormed ahead of everyone. The two of them had remained best friends regardless of her intellect, and I couldn't help but hope that Ariella would have a bright future ahead of her. I'll be fine. Better be. The smile grew. Saya out. The holographic image vanished, allowing me to see the ship once again as I released a sigh and thought of my daughter and how much I missed her and hoped to see her soon. Landing. The ship shook violently upon entering the atmosphere, and despite having landed numerous times before, I couldn't help but grip my seat, feeling my ears pop under the repeated pressure changes as we hurtled down towards the planet. There's a little secret to landing. It's never actually a landing so much as it's a controlled way of crashing, and that was exactly what we were doing. We were crashing, regardless of how controlled it may have been. Exhilarated, alert, afraid, worried, and 1,000 other emotions circulated through my body with every beat of my racing heart, making me feel alive. It had been a long time since I'd felt that way, but knowing the promises, having them play in the back of my mind, they seemed to bring me to life in a way only one other thing had ever done before. The day I'd birthed Ariella was the only other time in my life I'd felt such an incredible high. The sudden jolt rippled through my body as the ship finally touched the ground, before briefly sinking into the moist soil dirt. I released a breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding, my muscles relaxing and my heart continuing to race violently with excitement. Prepare for decontamination. The voice of the female AI echoed around us, the first protocol ever put in place to prevent the spread of disease between planets and putting entire ecosystems at risk. Decontamination. The ship became so misty I was barely able to see my own hand in front of my face as it killed any possible contaminants before clearing just as quickly as it had appeared. Ensure protocol units are in place, the AI continued, preparing to open doors. The sudden rush of air caught me off guard as I stood for the first time since landing, and it seemed I'd almost forgotten what a simple, small breeze felt like. My heart paused as I stared at the beautiful lands that awaited me, the endless trees that seemed to touch the sky. With wide eyes, I struggled to comprehend what I was seeing as I gazed upon the Jurassic world that remained proud and glorious in all of its beauty and wonder. Large plants surrounded us, with leaves double the size of my arm, looking as if I would have imagined Earth to have looked like millions of years before humans took domination of it. In absolute awe, I slowly stepped outside of the ship and into the large clearing, surrounded by an endless forest unlike anything I had ever witnessed before. It was at that moment my gaze fell upon the most magnificent creature, so large it dwarfed our ship as it reached its long neck to eat the leaves upon the large branches of the trees. Be careful, Lizzie. We don't know much of this planet. Saya's voice arose from within my helmet. Don't worry, I'm being careful, but oh my God, if only you could see this. It's amazing, I muttered breathlessly. We need accurate oxygen readings of the planet, soil mineral readings, and samples of the water. I'm on it, I murmured, as I stared at the dark clouds that approached and smiled. Conveniently, it looks like it'll be raining soon. Well, that is convenient. We also need weather readings so that we can ensure that we will have alternative fuel sources. Don't want to be burning that fossil fuel again. I know. Calm down. I'm on it. Hesitantly, I returned to the ship and collected the equipment needed as the crew began to get to work. I collected a small amount of soil from the ground and returned inside yet again before placing it in the machine and patiently waiting for the results to send to Saya. Perhaps if I'd have been a scientist rather than a frontline soldier, I'd have had the simplest idea as to what the results meant or what the machine was called. But the truth was, I'd never been smart enough to be a scientist. My skills were with my hands and with a gun. Perhaps a little bit of medicine on the side, but that was the most I could achieve. It wasn't that I hadn't applied myself at school, it was just the skills I'd acquired over the years, but even so, they hadn't prepared me for what was to come. As I waited, a gentle sprinkle of rain began outside, but was shortly followed by a blood-curdling scream that sent my body cold. With instincts taking control over my body, I grabbed the gun up on my belt, preparing myself to draw blood as I approached the opening of the ship. But what I saw, I couldn't fight. My eyes grew wide with fear, my heart hammering violently against my ribs until I could barely stand it. Outside the ship, too far for us to be able to do anything to save him, stood Harry's brother, Bayani, screaming and writhing in agony as he crumbled to the floor. His suit crumbling in on itself, melting to his skin with each drop of rain that fell from the sky. With absolute desperation to live, he tore at the material until his muscle and bone was on display. No longer was there any skin to cover it. "Lizzie, what's happening? Answer me, damn it!" shouted Saya as I became aware of her voice over the high-pitched noise that screeched in my ears, drowning out all other noises but the sound of his screams. "The rain is highly acidic," I muttered, my voice void of all emotion as I stared with wide eyes. "How acidic?" "Acidic enough to melt through our suits. It's deadly. Avoid getting any on you, at all, and try to wait it out. Report if anything else happens." "I will do, Saya," I murmured, his body falling to the moist soil as the final flicker of life fled from his body. Though I thought I could see the expansion of his chest, indicating shallow breaths, but the lack of movement in his body made it highly unlikely. We all stood there in shock and fear, unable to move my gaze from his lifeless body. I remained frozen into place with wide eyes and a heart beating viciously against my ribs. Day 3. The gentle sprinkle of acidic rain had finally come to an end as the sun rose in the cloudless sky. Hesitantly, I stepped out of the ship as myself and the rest of the crew went to collect his body. As I assisted in picking him up, his body suddenly gained some sort of life and he gripped my wrist and held it firmly before his gaze met mine. His suit had moulded to his skin and his eyes were no longer there, and yet it felt as though he was staring into my soul through the hollow sockets that remained. "Run," he gurgled, barely able to speak. "Get off this planet before it's too late." His body became limp once more, and quickly Haru checked his pulse. A single solemn tear fell down his cheek. "He's gone," he murmured. "I'm sorry," I muttered, unsure of what else I could possibly say to comfort him. Carefully, we placed his body upon the board before carrying him back to the ship, no one wanting to leave him out there in the open. The sound of the zipper closing as his body was placed into the black bag sent shivers down my spine as I turned and gazed at the world that surrounded us. The sound of the zipper closing as his body was placed into the black bag sent shivers down my spine as I turned and gazed at the world that surrounded us, wondering as to what other hidden dangers were out there awaiting us. "We need to get back to work," said someone, though my mind hadn't registered who'd said the words, as I stared out at where Bayani had perished. I gulped and briefly looked at the photograph of my daughter, finding the will to push myself to continue working before finally I did exactly that. It's just one minor problem that we can find a way around, I thought. I won't let you down, Ariella. We will make this a new home for you and for the children of the future. It's just one minor setback. Day 4. Nervously, I collected the data needed whilst watching the sky in case it rained again. Other crew members worked at collecting leaves and branches to cover the metal of the ship that had started to melt and corrode from the acidic rain. Fearing the danger that lurked in the sky, I worked quickly when I heard the sudden petrified scream. Quickly, I span on the balls of my feet to see the giant beast pick up the girl with ease, its wings twice the size of the ship we'd landed in. Despite her struggles, the scaled creature lifted her and began to fly. Quickly, I glanced at the dangerous skies above before seeing another of the beasts begin to dive towards the earth, my heart hammering in my chest as another blood-curdling scream emanated from the girl. As the creature dropped her and allowed her to fall to her death. Before collecting its prize, it left us, and another began its hunt. Under the shelter of the ship, I grabbed my gun and forced myself to focus past my panic as I aimed at the unusual yet beautiful green scales. Time seemed to slow as the creature attempted to take Haru as its prey. A long, controlled breath escaped my lungs as I pulled the trigger, and with a single blast of light, the beast suddenly crumbled, becoming lifeless as it collapsed on top of Haru. "Shit!" I blurted as the crew quickly accumulated around the foreign being. "What's going on? What's happening now?" "It's fine, Saya. We have the situation under control. Only one casualty," I continued as I ran towards the alien creature and began to assist in moving its lifeless corpse from crushing Haru. Swiftly, I pushed the button to end transmission as the crew worked together to remove the heavy load, only to reveal his crumpled body. Broken bones penetrated through the skin, and the strong coppery scent arose as he attempted to move to see his wounds. "Haru, don't move. Just stay still. We've got you," I blurted quickly. The medics got to work, moving his body so that we could relocate him into the ship, where they began treatment of his injuries. His screams of pain echoing into the distance as the rest of us returned to our work. Knowing that there was much for us to do, and fearing the ever-growing dangers that surrounded us, cautiously, I looked to the sky, my gaze like that of a hawk as I studied the clouds for any form of movement, but there was very little. "Stay close to the ship, in case of another attack," commanded another soldier, and that was exactly what all those on the ground did. Fear grew within each of us, though no one dared to speak about it. We each watched over our shoulders, never truly knowing what we may see. "Could you provide us with samples?" asked Saya, her voice holding a professionalism that sent shivers down my spine. Struggling to speak any words, I did as she asked, and placed them into the silver sphere, and allowing it to begin its journey towards the ship that orbited the planet. Day 5. Something about this planet doesn't feel right. This is nothing like what I've read about Earth, I murmured, as I sat with my legs dangling over the edge of the ship, watching the beautiful sunset. The incredible sight, barely believable considering the dangers upon the world that now haunted my every waking thought. There were dangers on Earth. We were just the top of the food chain by the time it was destroyed. We just need to assert ourselves on this planet, replied Saya. Last I read, Earth didn't have acidic rain. After what our ancestors did to Earth, it couldn't sustain life at all. Acidic rain is something minor that we can overcome. I'm not so sure. Briefly, I paused. I promised Ariella I'd find her a new home, a new Earth. I don't want that promise to be empty. We will have a new Earth. I know we will. Just have faith. It's hard to have faith when you're down here, Saya. It's not how I imagined it would be. It'll be hard. I know we will. You've just got to be positive. Her voice seemed to remain cheery despite what had happened over the days since we'd landed. As she spoke, I became aware of an unusual sound that caught my attention and caused the hairs on the back of my neck to stand on ends. Hang on a minute, I murmured as I turned the corner with my gun at the ready, when something hit me at the back of my head, knocking me to the ground. Dark shadows moved around me with impossible speed and screams echoed around me. Struggling to move with the ringing in my ears, I turned and attempted to aim my gun. Hesitantly, I pulled the trigger as soon as I'd gained a shot on one of the shadows. Suddenly, a massive force hit my ribs and the crack shook through my body. The shrieking from the unusual beast engulfed me as my lungs gurgled with every breath that I struggled to take. Lizzie, what's happening? What's going on? Hostiles. Discovered. I gurgled as I turned onto my back and laid there, hopelessly waiting for death. I closed my eyes, allowing death to take me as my body turns numb. My heart slows and my breathing grows shallower. In my mind, I see her, my beautiful baby girl, as she lands on a planet much like I'd always imagined Earth. Already awaiting her is a functioning colony, and with all that she will ever need, and a soft smile grows on my face, I finally accept my fate. And that is the end of our very first short story monthly special. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, please don't forget to press that like button and subscribe and that little bell button, because then you'll get notifications of all the video content that we release on this channel. And last thing, do not forget to answer our question with a quick comment down below. What scares you the most? I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast of The Cursed Kingdom. See you then. Bye.
From